Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever picked up a really old letter, maybe one from a grandparent or even further back, and felt a sudden, almost magnetic connection to someone from centuries ago? You read their words, you understand their challenges, their warnings, their hopes, and it's almost as if they're speaking directly to you, across the chasm of time. That's precisely what we're doing today, but we're going a lot further back than just a few generations. Today, our deep dive focuses on two incredibly short, remarkably personal, yet profoundly impactful ancient letters, the New Testament books known as 2nd John and 3rd John.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how these brief documents, penned by an individual simply identify as the elder, offer just such a direct, unfiltered window into the very nascent Christian communities. They reveal not only their burgeoning internal dynamics, the hopes and struggles of real people trying to build something new, but also the significant external pressures and ideological challenges they faced in their formative years. These aren't just historical artifacts to be dusted off. They are vibrant snapshots of real people navigating real-world issues, many of which, frankly, echo in our own time.
Exactly. Our mission for this deep dive is to extract the vital nuggets of wisdom from these incredibly concise texts. We'll explore timeless themes like truth as a living principle, the multifaceted nature of love, the critical skill of discernment in a world, frankly, full of conflicting ideas, and the enduring importance of community cohesion. We'll unpack who these letters were originally intended for, what urgent messages they carried for their immediate recipients, and perhaps most importantly, why they remain incredibly relevant for anyone navigating complex social and ideological landscapes today. Think about it. Ancient problems, but surprisingly, timeless solutions and insights for our modern world.
And to do this, we're drawing directly from the original source material. The texts themselves, often referred to via shorthand like NT24 2nd John.pdf and NT25 3rd John.pdf. These are epistles or, formal letters attributed to the elder, a figure whose influence seems to have been significant despite the brevity of his self-designation.
And crucially, these aren't long, sprawling theological treatises or dense philosophical arguments that might require years of study to unravel. Not at all. They're quick, almost like urgent dispatches or personal memos, addressing very specific, pressing issues. Imagine them as the ancient world's equivalent of a vital text message, or maybe a short, impactful email from a respected leader, packing a lot of punch and personal urgency into just a few lines. They're incredibly direct, almost blunt in their simplicity, which I think makes their message even more potent.
Indeed. Their brevity, in fact, makes them extraordinarily potent.
Yeah.
They strip away any potential for elaborate philosophical arguments or lengthy theological dissertations to get straight to the heart of what it meant and still means to live in truth and love within a burgeoning movement facing significant challenges, both from within and without. They cut straight to the core of ethical and communal living, forcing the reader, forcing you to confront fundamental principles without distraction. It's really a masterclass in concise, impactful communication.
All right, let's dive into the elder's voice, because that's where both of these letters immediately draw you in. Each letter opens with the simple yet powerful self-designation, the elder. Just that. It's not a formal title like apostle or bishop in the way we might think of it today. So what kind of authority or relationship would that simple phrase have conveyed to the people receiving this letter back then? What does that tell us right away about the person writing and their connection to the recipients?
That's a great initial observation because it speaks volumes about the nature of leadership in these earliest Christian communities. The term elder likely encompassed a blend of meanings. It certainly implies age and the wisdom that naturally accrues with extensive experience, which would have automatically commanded respect in a traditional society. But it also suggests a recognized position of authority, a leadership role, that while perhaps not formalized with an official ecclesiastical title, as we understand it later in church history, was nonetheless profoundly influential. For the recipients, this self-designation wasn't just a name, it was a clear signal. They knew precisely who the elder was, his reputation, his past guidance, his spiritual fatherhood all preceded him. It implied a deep personal bond and a history of trusted counsel, establishing his profound authority and respect without needing some grandiose title.
So it's not about a fancy job title on a business card, like you said, but about an authority earned through presence and wisdom within the community. That's really powerful. It makes you consider that in a fledgling movement, where everything is still taking shape, relying on reputation and perceived wisdom, rather than purely formal, externally imposed titles, fosters a much deeper sense of trust and connection. It implies a personal relationship, a history of shared experiences, guidance, and care that transcends mere hierarchical structure. It's a very organic form of leadership, isn't it?
Precisely. Consider the power dynamic of an unnamed but widely recognized authority figure in such a nascent movement. There's an inherent trust built on character, on demonstrated wisdom, and on a history of sound judgment, rather than on a pre-established, rigid hierarchical structure. It's almost as if his authority is self-evident to those who know him. They don't need a formal credential because his life itself serves as his credential. In a world where communication was often slow, laborious, and communities were frequently isolated, the personal credibility and spiritual authority of a leader like the elder would have been absolutely paramount for guiding, unifying, and preserving scattered groups. It suggests a direct spiritual oversight, a personal hand in their growth and challenges, far more intimate than a distant administrative role. It certainly makes you wonder how many modern organizations could benefit from a leadership style where wisdom, experience, and integrity are the primary markers of influence, rather than just elected office or position. It shifts the focus from power to profound impact and genuine guidance.
That's a fascinating insight into ancient leadership dynamics. And speaking of personal connection, one of the most striking things in both letters is this repeated sentiment, a sort of longing from the elder. He says, "I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face so that our joy may be complete." And then again in 3 John, it's almost identical. "I have much to write you, but I do not want to do so with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon and we will talk face to face." This isn't just a casual remark. It's clearly important enough for him to repeat, almost like a yearning, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. This repeated emphasis on face-to-face communication over written correspondence is incredibly revealing about the nature of relationships and problem solving in the ancient world, and honestly, even in our own. Why was this personal interaction so important? Well, for one, the limitations of paper and ink, which would have been, parchment or papyrus, were significant. It was expensive, slow, and inherently difficult to convey nuance, emotion, or the subtle complexities required to resolve intricate issues, especially disputes or delicate matters of doctrine. A letter could be easily misinterpreted, a tone misread, a crucial detail lost. But a face-to-face conversation allowed for immediate clarification, for the expression of empathy through body language, for the spontaneous back and forth that builds rapport, and for the kind of deep relational connection necessary for true understanding, persuasion, and reconciliation. You can't capture a sigh, a knowing glance, or the full weight of someone's concern in a mere letter. You just get the words, which are often insufficient.
That makes so much sense when you put it that way. It really speaks to the timeless human need for direct personal connection, doesn't it? Even in our hyper-connected digital age, where we have endless ways to communicate textually, emails, chats, social media DMs, even video calls that often feel like a poor substitute for true presence. What do you think is truly lost when communication is solely textual? When we rely entirely on pen and ink, rather than seeking that face-to-face interaction the elder longed for, what joy is truly made complete only by personal presence?
A tremendous amount is lost, especially when dealing with sensitive relational or foundational issues.
Yeah.
Textual communication often strips away the richness and multidimensionality of human interaction. The nonverbal cues, the subtle inflections of voice, the shared presence that organically builds empathy and trust over time. Imagine trying to resolve a complex community dispute or convey deep spiritual encouragement or even just genuine affection solely through written messages. It's incredibly difficult to convey true warmth, genuine concern, firm conviction, or nuanced understanding without the immediate feedback loop of personal presence. The joy that the elder speaks of being made complete by personal presence highlights that ultimate satisfaction and fulfillment in relationships often comes from shared physical space and direct, unmediated interaction, not just information exchange. It's a profound difference between sending a quick text saying thinking of you and sitting down for a deep, nuanced, hours-long conversation with someone you deeply care about, sharing a meal, looking them in the eye. The latter fosters a completeness of connection, a shared experience that the former simply cannot achieve. It's the difference between merely knowing someone and truly being with them.
That's a powerful point. It truly underscores the depth of human connection that was sought even back then, and how much we still crave it. And it brings us naturally to a core theme woven throughout both letters, a kind of bedrock principle: walking in truth. This concept of truth isn't just an abstract idea here. It's described as something active and vital, an animating force. For example, in 2 John, the elder writes, "Whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all who know the truth because of the truth, which lives in us and will be with us forever." And he adds, "It has given me great joy to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as the Father commanded us." Then 3 John, similar language. "It gave me great joy to have some brothers come and tell about your faithfulness to the truth and how you continue to walk in the truth."
This concept of the truth in these contexts is far more than just intellectual assent to a set of facts or agreeing with a particular doctrine. It's presented as a dynamic way of life, an internal compass, a guiding principle that profoundly informs one's actions, decisions, and relationships on a daily basis. When the elder speaks of the truth, which lives in us and will be with us forever, he's describing it as an indwelling, transformative force, an active presence within their very being, not merely an external standard or a list of rules to obey. This shared commitment to living out the truth actively unifies the community, providing a common bedrock for their interactions and beliefs, fostering a deep cohesion because everyone is striving to embody the same fundamental principles in their daily lives. It becomes the very air they breathe, the language they speak, the way they move through the world.
So it's not about having the right answers on a test, but about living an authentic life, aligned with core principles, almost as if truth permeates their very existence. What does it truly mean for truth to live in us? How does truth become an active, indwelling force, rather than just an abstract concept we intellectually agree with, something we might simply acknowledge but not embody? Because that sounds like a very profound shift in how we might view truth, moving it from the realm of philosophy to the realm of lived experience.
It implies that truth isn't something external that you merely observe or acknowledge from a distance, or something you simply believe in your head. Instead, it becomes an internal compass, guiding your very being, your character, your choices. When truth lives in us, it becomes integrated into our core identity, influencing our decisions, shaping our values, and directing our actions. It means acting with unwavering integrity, speaking with complete sincerity, and living transparently in all aspects of life. Think about an organization or a family where shared values like honesty, respect, and mutual support aren't just talked about in mission statements, but are genuinely embodied and demonstrated in every interaction, every decision, every conversation. That deep, consistent congruence between belief and behavior creates an incredibly powerful unifying force. When individuals walk in the truth, their lives become a living testament to it, creating a collective identity and purpose that strengthens the entire community from the inside out. Their actions don't just reflect truth, they are truth in action.
That makes perfect sense. It's about embodying those values daily, visibly. And speaking of a life that embodies truth, there's an incredibly striking phrase in 3 John about a man named Diotrephes. He says, "Demetrius is well spoken of by everyone, and even by the truth itself." Wow, that's not a common way to describe someone's character. It's almost poetic.
It's an extraordinary and quite profound endorsement, isn't it? This phrase suggests truth as an almost sentient entity capable of bearing witness or offering a testimony. It elevates Demetrius' character beyond mere human opinion, implying a universal, undeniable recognition of his integrity and authenticity that transcends subjective praise. For the truth itself, to vouch for him means his life and actions were so consistent with the truth, that active, indwelling principle we just discussed, that his character was self-evident and beyond reproach. It's as if Demetrius' life was so transparent, so congruent with the very nature of reality, that truth itself, if it had a voice, would nod in affirmation. He wasn't just telling the truth, he was embodying it to such a degree that it became self-validating, a walking, breathing argument for integrity. It's the highest possible commendation in a community built on shared values and authenticity.
So it's not just that people say he's truthful, but that his very existence, his very being, emanates truth so powerfully that it's undeniable. That's a truly remarkable idea. What would it mean for any of us to live a life that the truth itself vouches for? How can our actions, rather than just our words, speak truths so loudly that they become undeniable, even to those who might disagree with our specific beliefs?
It means living a life of such unwavering integrity and consistency between one's professed beliefs and one's actual behavior that the authenticity becomes undeniable to anyone who observes it. Your actions become a living, breathing demonstration of the truth you claim to embody. This isn't about perfection, mind you, but about an unyielding commitment to sincerity and congruence. Consider historical figures whose lives were so dedicated to certain principles, justice, compassion, intellectual honesty, that their very existence became a powerful embodiment of those truths. Think of someone like Abraham Lincoln, whose integrity was so widely acknowledged that it shaped the very perception of his leadership. Or perhaps a scientist whose meticulous research consistently uncovers verifiable truths, earning the trust of their entire field. Their integrity became self-evident, a testament visible to all, even those who might disagree with their specific ideologies or conclusions. It speaks to a profound congruence between internal conviction and external expression, where one's life literally is their message.
That's a high bar, but a truly compelling vision for how to live. And it leads us seamlessly into another foundational concept explored in these letters, the ancient command to love, and how it's intertwined with obedience. In 2 John, the elder tells the chosen lady, "And now, dear lady, I am not writing you a new command, but one we have had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another."
Right. This emphasis on not a new command, but one we have had from the beginning is incredibly significant. It underscores the foundational nature of love within the Christian faith, positioning it not as an innovation or a fleeting trend, but as a core tenet from its absolute inception. This historical grounding profoundly strengthens the command, elevating it beyond a mere suggestion to an eternal, non-negotiable principle. It reminds the recipients that love is inherent to their very identity and purpose, something deeply ingrained in the fabric of their community from its earliest days. It's like reminding them of the very DNA of their movement.
That's a powerful way to put it. It's like reminding us of the basic operating system or the core protocol of a healthy community. But why does reiterating an old command make it feel fresh and urgent for the listener? Does it imply something about the human tendency to drift, to forget or neglect foundational principles, even the most obvious and crucial ones?
Oh, absolutely. It speaks directly to what I call the principle erosion inherent in any long-standing movement or even in personal disciplines, the subtle, almost imperceptible drift away from the core values that birthed it. We often get caught up in new ideas, new challenges, immediate concerns, or simply the daily grind. And in doing so, we can inadvertently sideline the foundational principles that truly sustain us. Rehearsing an old command like love one another is a powerful recalibration. It reminds the community to return to its core, to remember what truly matters and what their identity is built upon. It makes it urgent because if this basic, ancient command is neglected, the entire structure of the community is at risk of unraveling. It's much like a ship gradually veering off course if the compass isn't constantly rechecked, or how basic rules in any successful organization like clear communication or mutual respect need to be constantly revisited and reinforced to maintain cohesion and prevent the entire enterprise from unraveling. Without that constant reinforcement, even the most fundamental principles can slowly erode and a community can lose its way.
That's a fantastic and sobering analogy. And the elder doesn't stop there. He immediately defines what this love looks like, linking it directly to action, making it anything but abstract. And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands. As you have heard from the beginning, his command is that you walk in love. So this isn't just about a feeling, it's an active choice, a tangible way of living.
This verse is absolutely crucial because it explicitly links love to obedience, providing a concrete, practical, and deeply ethical definition. It refutes any notion of love as merely a sentimental emotion or an abstract feeling that one can just feel without acting upon. Instead, love is portrayed as an active choice, a conscious decision to follow divine instructions. His commands here would broadly refer to the ethical and moral teachings foundational to the early Christian movement, which, as the elder states, have been understood from the beginning. This practical, actionable definition of love stands in stark contrast to more sentimental or abstract notions that might allow for apathy or inaction. It transforms love from a passive state into a dynamic, responsible way of being and interacting, demanding active engagement and ethical living.
So if love is an active choice expressed through obedience, what kind of specific actions are implied by his commands in this context? And how does aligning love with obedience create such a robust framework for ethical living within a community, rather than just leaving love as a vague feel-good concept?
By linking love to obedience, it establishes a clear, unwavering framework for ethical living within the community. It implies actions rooted in justice, compassion, integrity, and self-sacrifice. The very tenets that defined the early Christian community's moral code and their distinctive way of life in an often hostile world. It means practical expressions like caring for the vulnerable, speaking truth even when it's difficult, sharing resources with those in need, showing forgiveness, and maintaining purity of doctrine against corrupting influences. This framework ensures that love isn't just a subjective feeling that can be interpreted any way one wishes, leading to inconsistency or even self-serving behavior. Instead, it becomes a disciplined, outward-focused way of life that benefits the entire community, providing a clear blueprint for moral conduct. Think of a parent whose profound love for their child is expressed not just through affection, but through setting clear, consistent boundaries, teaching them right from wrong, guiding them towards responsible behavior, and making sacrifices for their future. That active, sometimes challenging guidance is a profound expression of love, ensuring the child's well-being and growth into a responsible adult. It's love in action, not just emotion.
That's a wonderfully clear distinction, making love tangible and actionable. And that brings us to where the rubber meets the road, the very real dangers that face these early communities. This next section is where things get truly compelling, navigating deception and the peril of false teaching. The elder issues a stark warning in 2 John. He says, "Many deceivers who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh have gone out into the world. Any such person is the deceiver and the Antichrist."
This is a critical pivot in the letter, highlighting an existential threat. The elder here identifies a very specific doctrinal issue, a departure from core belief, the denial of Jesus Christ coming in the flesh. Why was this particular belief so crucial in the early church? Because it directly speaks to the incarnation, the profound and central reality that God became fully human in Jesus. Denying this fundamentally undermined the entire basis of their faith. It challenged the reality of Christ's suffering, death, and resurrection, and by extension, the atonement for sins, the very means of reconciliation with God. This was not a minor theological quibble. It struck at the heart of Christian identity and salvation. The language used, identifying such a person as the deceiver and the Antichrist, is incredibly strong, revealing the absolute gravity of this threat to the very core of their belief system. It was seen as an existential danger, a cancerous lie that could metastasize and destroy the community from within. Historically, this often refers to early forms of Gnosticism, which denied the true humanity of Christ, believing matter to be evil and thus incompatible with a divine being.
So it's not a minor disagreement. It's a direct assault on what they considered foundational life-giving truth. What forms do similar deceptions take in modern discourse, perhaps even outside of a strictly religious context? How do ideas that deny core realities, whether scientific, historical, or ethical, impact communities or belief systems today? And what might Antichrist signify beyond a specific individual, perhaps as a spirit or an ideology that actively works against fundamental truths and genuine human flourishing?
That's a vital connection to make. In modern discourse, similar deceptions can manifest as the denial of established scientific facts like, say, climate change or the efficacy of vaccines, the distortion of historical events for political gain, or the rejection of universal ethical principles that underpin civil society. For example, the propagation of conspiracy theories that undermine trust in verifiable information or institutions, or ideologies that dehumanize certain groups, can be seen as modern parallels to denying a core reality. Such ideas impact communities by creating deep division, fostering pervasive distrust, and hindering collective action towards any common good. When fundamental realities are denied, whether biological, historical, or moral, the entire foundation upon which a community or society operates can begin to crumble, leading to fragmentation, moral relativism, and instability. As for Antichrist, it can certainly signify more than just a single person. It could represent an ideology, a spirit, or a pervasive cultural current that actively opposes or undermines the core tenets of truth, love, and genuine connection. It's a force that seeks to dismantle what is good and true, often by twisting truth into falsehood, by eroding trust, or by promoting self-serving agendas dressed up as liberation. Think of how denying core tenets of a scientific field like evolution in biology or general relativity in physics would completely undermine its entire foundation and the progress built upon it. The consequences are far-reaching, leading to intellectual chaos and practical harm.
That makes the warning feel incredibly prescient for our own time. And the elder then follows up this warning with a very practical, and to modern ears, maybe seemingly harsh instruction. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not take him into your house or welcome him. Anyone who welcomes him shares in his wicked work. This instruction to deny hospitality seems so counter to the general emphasis on love and welcome elsewhere in early Christian writings. How do we reconcile that apparent tension?
This is a crucial point for understanding community survival in the ancient world, and it highlights a critical tension. While hospitality was indeed paramount, a deeply ingrained cultural and religious obligation, almost a sacred duty for early Christians who relied on it for travel and community, denying it was a severe and very public rebuke. The elder is not advocating for a general lack of welcome to all strangers or a xenophobic closing off of the community. Not at all. Instead, he's issuing a specific and strategic withholding of support for those actively promoting harmful, subversive doctrine, particularly doctrines that fundamentally distort the identity of Christ. In the ancient world, homes were not just private residences. They were often the primary meeting places for early Christian communities. Providing hospitality, especially to itinerant teachers or missionaries, implied endorsement and actively facilitated their mission. It was a tangible form of support, extending resources, a platform, and credibility. The reason for this strict instruction is explicitly stated. Anyone who welcomes him shares in his wicked work. This isn't about personal discomfort or preference. It's about preventing the spread of what was considered spiritually, communally, and even existentially destructive teaching. To host a false teacher, to give them a platform within your community, was to become an accomplice in their deception, lending them legitimacy and enabling their capacity to sow discord and false ideas. It was an act of profound discernment and protective stewardship, aimed at safeguarding the spiritual integrity and even the very survival of the nascent Christian movement.
This raises an important question, one that resonates deeply today. How do we balance open-mindedness, intellectual curiosity, and a general spirit of welcome with the critical need for protecting core beliefs, or even just our fundamental well-being as individuals and communities? Where is the line between genuinely welcoming a stranger or a new idea and inadvertently endorsing or even funding dangerous, destructive ideas? What are the modern equivalents of taking into your house or welcoming someone that shares wicked work? Is it providing platforms on social media, lending a public endorsement, or even financial support to organizations that actively promote harmful ideologies?
That is indeed a profound and timeless question, and one we grapple with constantly in our interconnected, hypermediated world. The balance is incredibly delicate and requires constant vigilance. Open-mindedness is crucial for personal growth, for understanding diverse perspectives, and for societal progress, but it absolutely cannot extend to ideas that demonstrably cause harm, promote violence, or seek to dismantle fundamental truths and ethical principles. The line is drawn when ideas actively promote malice, deception, division, or the destruction of communal well-being and basic human dignity. Modern equivalents of taking into your house absolutely include providing platforms for harmful rhetoric, whether on social media, in public forums, or through media outlets. It means lending a voice or endorsement to individuals or groups that spread misinformation, propagate hate speech, or incite violence. It also encompasses offering financial support to entities that engage in destructive activities, or allowing them to operate under the guise of legitimacy within our spaces or institutions. It's about recognizing that our actions, even seemingly passive ones like providing a platform, have significant consequences and can imply endorsement or complicity. Consider it like a medical professional refusing to endorse a dangerous quack who promotes unproven, harmful treatments, or a social media platform struggling with its responsibility to refuse to host hate speech or calls to violence. The principle is the same. Active participation or passive support for destructive practices or teachings carries a significant moral weight and can make one complicit in their negative impact. It's a call to conscious responsibility in our choices of association and support.
That brings a completely different, much deeper layer to it. It's about being responsible for the impact of our associations and endorsements, whether intentional or not. And tied to this warning about false teaching is also a powerful encouragement for perseverance. The elder says, "Watch out that you do not lose what you have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully. Anyone who runs ahead and does not continue in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever continues in the teaching has both the Father and the Son." This isn't just about avoiding error, it's about staying the course.
This passage really emphasizes consistency, steadfastness, and adherence to established teaching, which is vital for spiritual maturity and communal stability. What does running ahead imply here? It suggests a premature innovation without proper grounding, or perhaps a radical departure from the core, foundational truths that have been received and verified by the community. It's not about healthy progress or evolving understanding, but about straying into dangerous, untested territory without the anchor of sound doctrine and established community wisdom. The warning of losing what was worked for suggests that there has been significant effort, investment, and spiritual growth in their faith journey, and this could be jeopardized, rendered meaningless by abandoning the true teaching. The stakes are incredibly high. The promise of having both the Father and the Son highlights the profound spiritual benefits and deep relational connection involved. Their very relationship with the divine is contingent upon their continued adherence to the core teachings of Christ, not just a fleeting intellectual agreement.
So it's about holding steady, not just starting well, and not getting carried away by every new idea that comes along. What does full reward mean for the listener in this context, extending beyond just a religious framework? And how does sustained effort and consistency, whether in faith, in a career, or in any other field of knowledge or practice, ultimately lead to a deeper understanding, greater mastery, and more profound benefit compared to those who might run ahead or abandon their efforts prematurely?
For the listener, full reward can be understood in terms of the profound, lasting benefits that come from steadfastness, integrity, and consistent application of effort. It means experiencing the complete richness, stability, and deep satisfaction that comes from living in alignment with truth and love, which naturally leads to deeper spiritual connection, clearer moral discernment, and stronger, more resilient community bonds. In any field, whether it's learning a new skill, building a successful career, nurturing a long-term relationship, or pursuing scientific discovery, sustained effort and consistency are the keys to mastery and genuine, lasting success. Consider the long-term investor who patiently holds their portfolio through market fluctuations versus the short-term speculator who chases every new trend. The former often reaps the full reward of compounded growth, while the latter risks losing what they've worked for. Similarly, a scholar who dedicates years to deeply understanding a complex subject will gain a mastery and nuanced insight that eludes someone who superficially skims many topics. Abandoning a long-term investment too soon, whether it's financial, intellectual, or spiritual, inevitably forfeits potential gains and a deeper return on that initial commitment. The reward is the flourishing that comes from enduring in what is true and good, reaping the cumulative benefits of persistent, principled action.
That's a really compelling parallel, illustrating how widely this principle applies. And now, moving to 3 John, we see these principles of hospitality and leadership play out with specific examples, bringing these abstract ideas to life in a very personal way. We have Gaius, who is presented as a model of faithful hospitality. The elder says to him, "Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health, and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well." That's a lovely opening. He continues, "Dear friend, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. You'll do well to send them on their way in a manner worthy of God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans."
This passage provides a powerful, positive contrast to the warning against hospitality in 2 John. Gaius's hospitality was absolutely crucial for the survival and spread of the early Christian message. He was supporting itinerant missionaries, traveling teachers, and evangelists who went out for the sake of the name, meaning for the cause of Christ. And importantly, they were receiving no help from the pagans, which means they had no external secular support systems. They relied solely on the generosity and hospitality of fellow believers. Gaius's actions were a literal lifeline for these individuals, providing them with food, shelter, and resources, enabling them to continue their vital work. The elder specifically commends Gaius's love and faithfulness even to strangers, underscoring the deep commitment required to sustain the movement. This wasn't just friendly gestures, it was strategic, sacrificial support for a shared, often perilous mission in a world that was often indifferent or hostile.
So his hospitality wasn't just a kindness, it was an act of vital strategic support for their mission, a cornerstone of their operational model, really. What are the modern equivalents of providing hospitality to those working for a cause, especially when they receive no help from pagans, meaning no conventional or mainstream support operating outside established systems? How do communities sustain their members and their mission in our interconnected but often fragmented world?
That's a very insightful parallel, and one that highlights the enduring need for grassroots support. In our modern context, providing hospitality to those working for a cause, especially when they lack mainstream or conventional support, can take many forms. It could be providing financial support through crowdfunding campaigns for independent journalists or underfunded nonprofits. It might involve offering pro bono professional services like legal aid or marketing expertise to activist groups. It can mean volunteering your time and skills to community organizers, providing housing for aid workers in crisis zones, or simply creating platforms or spaces, physical or digital, for marginalized voices to be heard and their work to gain traction. It's about recognizing that many vital causes operate on the fringes without the backing of large institutions, government funding, or corporate sponsorships. Communities sustain their members and mission in these scenarios through robust grassroots efforts, mutual aid networks, and the willingness of individuals to extend personal resources, intellectual support, and direct assistance to ensure that the work, for the sake of the name or cause, continues and thrives. It's a collective, often unseen, effort to bridge gaps where systemic support is absent or intentionally withheld.
That's a great practical application for today. But then, almost immediately after praising Gaius, we meet Diotrephes. And this is where things get truly compelling on a different front: internal conflict. The elder writes, "I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will have nothing to do with us. So if I come, I will call attention to what he's doing, gossiping maliciously about us. Not satisfied with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers. He also stops those who want to do so and puts them out of the church." Wow. This sounds like a nightmare scenario within any burgeoning organization.
It is indeed. This section reveals a profoundly different and perhaps even more insidious kind of challenge compared to the external doctrinal threats discussed in 2 John. Here, we're witnessing severe internal conflict and naked power struggles within the nascent church itself. Diotrephes is clearly driven by personal ambition. He loves to be first, a classic and perennial issue in any group dynamic, whether ancient or modern. His actions are egregious and deeply damaging. He rejects the elders' legitimate authority, actively spreads malicious gossip against him. He refuses hospitality to faithful brothers, a direct, deliberate contrast to Gaius's virtuous actions. And astonishingly, he expels those who do show hospitality to these traveling missionaries. This whole scenario vividly highlights the very real growing pains and leadership challenges faced by the early church. It's a stark reminder that problems don't just come from outside. They can fester and erupt with devastating consequences from within, driven by ego and a desire for control.
This raises an important question, one that every community, every organization eventually grapples with. How do groups deal with individuals who clearly prioritize personal ambition, ego, and self-aggrandizement over the community's well-being and established principles? What does it say about the inherent dangers of unchecked ego within any structure, whether it's a small volunteer group or a multinational corporation? And how does malicious gossip, specifically mentioned here, so effectively tear apart the very fabric of a community?
It highlights the critical need for clear leadership, robust accountability mechanisms, and a strong collective commitment to shared values, even when faced with charismatic but problematic individuals. Groups deal with such individuals, ideally, by directly confronting the behavior, establishing clear boundaries, and if necessary, exercising appropriate authority to protect the community from further harm. Unchecked ego within any structure is incredibly dangerous because it leads to a distortion of priorities, a pathological focus on self-aggrandizement rather than service, and a willingness to undermine others, distort truth, and create division for personal gain. It can poison the atmosphere, erode trust among members, stifle collaboration, and eventually lead to the fragmentation and collapse of the group's mission. Malicious gossip, specifically, is particularly insidious because it attacks relationships and reputations from within, sowing seeds of discord, suspicion, and mistrust without direct confrontation. It bypasses open dialogue and instead uses whispers and innuendo to undermine authority, discredit individuals, and divide loyalties. It corrodes trust, fosters an environment of fear and paranoia, and makes genuine collaboration almost impossible. It's a direct assault on the very bonds that hold a community together, effectively sabotaging its internal cohesion. Consider the devastating impact of a toxic leader in a workplace or a volunteer organization. Their actions can quickly dismantle morale, productivity, and the overall health of the group, much like Diotrephes was doing to that early church community, threatening to unravel its very foundation.
That's a truly chilling parallel, showing the timeless nature of these human dynamics. And the elder ends this particular discussion with a clear moral imperative, a direct challenge to choose how one will live. He tells Gaius, "Dear friend, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. Anyone who does what is good is from God. Anyone who does what is evil has not seen God." This is a stark, almost black and white contrast between the actions of Gaius and Diotrephes.
Absolutely. This verse provides a definitive moral compass, presenting a clear binary between good and evil, vividly exemplified by the actions of Gaius and Diotrephes. Good and evil are not presented here as abstract concepts to be debated philosophically or as subjective preferences. Instead, they are defined as concrete, observable actions that demonstrably reveal one's fundamental nature and indeed one's underlying relationship with the divine. Doing what is good indicates a connection to God, implying an embodiment of divine character, while doing what is evil signifies a profound disconnect, a failure to truly apprehend or reflect the divine. It's a powerful call to intentional, ethical living, where one's conduct becomes a visible testament to their core beliefs.
So it's not about what you say you believe or the creed you recite, but how you live, how you act in the world. How do our actions, big or small, reveal our fundamental values and beliefs in a way that words sometimes cannot, sometimes even betray? And what does it truly mean to have seen God through good actions, and conversely, to have not seen God through evil ones? That sounds like a very high bar for our daily conduct indeed.
Our actions are often the most accurate, undeniable, and unambiguous indicators of our true values and beliefs. Words can be manipulated, spoken superficially, or even used to deceive, but consistent, observable actions reveal the deeply held convictions and character that truly drive us. To have seen God through good actions implies that one's life is so aligned with divine principles of love, truth, and justice that God's very nature is reflected, almost refracted, through their behavior. It's not about a literal visual encounter with God, but about embodying God's character in such a way that others can perceive a divine presence or influence through their deeds. Their life becomes a living sermon, a visible manifestation of divine truth. Conversely, to have not seen God through evil actions means that one's conduct is so contrary to these divine principles, so characterized by malice, deception, or self-interest, that it indicates a complete lack of genuine understanding or relationship with the divine. It's about the manifestation of inner character through outward behavior. Think of a person who consistently acts with integrity, compassion, and fairness. Their very life becomes a testament to certain virtues. In stark contrast, someone consistently known for deceit, malice, or cruelty demonstrates a fundamental disconnection from those same virtues, regardless of what they might profess to believe. The actions in these instances speak far, far louder than any profession of belief. It's a call to profound personal accountability.
That is a profound and challenging thought for anyone navigating their own life, forcing us to look inward at our own daily choices. So what does this all mean? If we connect this to the bigger picture, these two incredibly short letters, though addressed to different recipients, one a chosen lady and her children, the other a dear friend Gaius, weave a unified, incredibly practical message about the critical importance of truth as a foundational principle for genuine love and cohesive community.
Indeed. These letters highlight a dual challenge faced by the early Christian movement, challenges that remain strikingly relevant today for any community, organization, or even personal philosophy. On one hand, there's the external threat from those who deny core tenets, the deceivers and antichrists discussed in 2 John, who sought to undermine the very identity and message of the community through doctrinal falsehood. On the other, there's the internal threat from those, like Diotrephes in 3 John, who disrupt community cohesion through personal ambition, malicious gossip, and the abuse of power. The elders' practical wisdom here is all about discernment, knowing who to welcome and who to guard against, not just for personal safety or comfort, but for the very integrity and survival of the collective mission and its core values.
It's a constant, timeless tension, isn't it? The need for unwavering conviction in core truths, alongside the active, sometimes difficult expression of love and hospitality, all while navigating the very human challenge of leadership, loyalty, and the pervasive temptation of ego. It's about being both firm and loving, discerning and compassionate, all at the same time. This isn't abstract theology. It's a blueprint for thriving in a complex world.
Exactly. It's the challenge of holding fast to foundational truth, which necessitates drawing clear boundaries when those truths are fundamentally attacked or undermined, while simultaneously practicing the expansive, generous love and hospitality that truly defines the movement. The elder is providing a blueprint for survival and thriving in a complex, often hostile world by emphasizing both doctrinal purity, the commitment to truth, and practical, ethical living within the community, the embodiment of love. These are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they are profoundly interdependent. One cannot truly embody love without truth as its guide, and truth without love risks becoming rigid and unyielding. It's a dynamic balance.
You know, after diving into these letters and thinking about how the elder navigated such complex issues with such directness, one question truly lingers for me, resonating deeply in our own time. In a world overflowing with information, and often misinformation and divisive rhetoric, how do we as individuals and as communities truly discern whose teaching to welcome into our houses, into our minds, our conversations, our shared spaces, our very lives, and whose wicked work we might unwittingly share in by offering a platform, an endorsement, or even just our passive attention? It's not about shutting people out arbitrarily or fostering insularity, but about understanding the profound responsibility that comes with openness and the subtle ways we could become complicit in the spread of ideas that ultimately diminish truth and love.
Indeed. The Elders' Council, though centuries old, reminds us that our discernment and our actions of both welcome and exclusion are never neutral. They actively shape the very fabric of the truth and love we claim to embody, whether in our personal lives, our families, our workplaces, or our broader communities. The challenge, then, is not merely to intellectually understand these ancient commands, but to apply their wisdom with careful thought, courage, and a deep sense of responsibility in our own complex, information-saturated lives. It requires constant vigilance, unwavering integrity, and the willingness to make difficult choices for the sake of what is truly good and true.
A lot to chew on there, indeed. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into these incredibly potent ancient letters. We encourage you to reflect on these ideas and consider how this ancient wisdom might apply to your own modern contexts.